This is Seahawks Stories, 50th Season Edition, presented by Emerald City Athletics.
We're broadcasting from the Seahawks Podcast Studio, presented by Sony, an official partner of the Seattle Seahawks. It is the 50th season of the Seattle Seahawks. We are taking you inside the locker room, or maybe just inside the studio, to uncover some of the stories you might not have heard before. Today, it is Matt Hasselbeck who joins us to reveal a few more stories.
I can guarantee you haven't heard before, because I'll tell stories that I haven't heard. How's that? Or I haven't said.
It'll be a surprise to all of us then. I will tell you that the biggest story we are going to hear is the story of the Beastquake. Now, you guys know it. You have seen it. You have heard the call from Steve Rabel so many times before. It is the 67-yard run that literally created an earthquake in Seattle. Marshawn Lynch breaks 9 tackles. Seattle goes on to win the playoff game against the Saints. But there's a little bit more to this story if we back that up to the beginning of the year, Matt, because that was the first year of Pete Carroll. Mm-hmm. And what I remember is a lot of transactions and a lot of just moving pieces all year long.
Yeah, I don't think that's unusual with a new head coach. They come in, and I think we set an NFL record that year for, in fact, I made a joke. I made name tags up and put them on everybody. I think Pete got mad at me for that. It was a Rule 2 violation, but for being negative, and it was like a passive-aggressive complaint. You say goodbye to a lot of friends, and it's a new team. And we'd work out a guy on Wednesday, like we'd be practicing down here. They'd work out a guy like Brandon Stokely down there with a bunch of scouts, and he'd literally like be starting for us that week. Tyler Columbus during the year, Marshawn during the year. Like, it just was like we never had a set roster. We never had a set. It was like a lot of foundation building, a lot of adversity. But obviously they knew what they were doing, but it was tough as a player. It was tough.
Well, and you go from Mike Holmgren to a completely different style of coach in Pete Carroll. At that point in your career, you certainly had enough years under your belt where you had seen a lot. Is that easy or harder after having Holmgren? They were very different, but I would say they were pretty similar in the fact that they both kind of had this this 49ers Bill Walsh undertone of what they were. Like Pete Carroll, I think, would say that Bud Grant influenced him the most. Maybe John Wooden and Bud Grant, those two guys. But no, I think they were pretty similar. Obviously offense and defense. I think what was different is I was turning 35 that year. We were getting a college head coach. He had us like tap in, all in before every practice, like hit the ceiling. Strength coaches would write down if you did or you didn't. We're doing bag drills. It was a lot of different like rah-rah stuff. I literally wanted to not like him as a coach. Like I wanted to. I love Pete as a coach. I thought he did a great job. But the transactions were tough. I mean, there's a reason why continuity, I think, in any business is helpful. But I think what he also brought was like this level of excellence in competing in everything that we do, no matter what. That was awesome. And that was, I'm grateful for that. It is not the easiest year in terms of wins and losses, and yet it goes down to the final game of the season. And I'm curious, look, a win is a win, and making the playoffs is making the playoffs. There is certainly something validating when you think about the hardships of that year and all of the pieces. How much did you hear the outside noise of you guys don't deserve to be there?
Oh, a lot. And Pete embraced it. It was a hard year, though. All the transactions was a thing. Injuries were a thing. I broke my left wrist. Our starting center, Chris Spencer, broke his right thumb. We would practice. He would have a cast on. I would have a cast on. We wouldn't snap. I would just hold the ball, and I just said hut, and I would just drop back. And then for games, we would cut our casts off and put on like a soft wrap with like athletic tape and a splint and play the games. Like it was brutal. It was brutal. Max Unger eventually was a great player, was so young and new in the league. They couldn't play him with his healthy hands at center. Like we were just not ready to be a team that had to go play every Sunday, but like we had a schedule. We had to play the games. And then even for me personally, Pete's whole thing was like, it's all about the ball. It's all about the ball. Don't turn the ball over. And for whatever reason, it's like when I'm golfing and someone says, hey, don't leave it short. Like I leave it short. Okay. I don't know if anyone can relate. That's me. And so he's like, don't turn it over. Don't turn it over. Like I was turning the ball over more than ever. Fumbles, interceptions. And And anyway, like eventually the assistant coaches, Jed Fish was my quarterback's coach. He said something to me that was like a game changer. And I think that it started to click. I think like Earl Thomas was young. Cam Chancellor was young. I think like guys like Lawyer Malloy rubbed off on them. Jerry Gray rubbed off on them. Like eventually we kind of got there, but it was struggle bus for sure.
It was an interesting year.
7-9. You know, we're hosting a playoff game. The world champs are coming to Seattle, South Alaska. This isn't right. But Pete did an amazing job of making us feel like you're not 7-9. They say you're 7-9. Like they can't do math. You're not 7-9. They're idiots. We're 0-0. Okay, we're 0-0. And the Saints, oh, they're world champs? No, they're not. They were world champs last year. They're 0-0, just like you. You're 0-0. We're the same. You know, and that was how he got us to think. We're competing. And he would do crazy things. He'd be like, all right, one-on-one pass rush. So whoever wins, you get to start this week. I remember this D lineman, we won the game in like this one-on-one O-line D-line drill. O-line D-line drill. He won the one-on-one competition for the day. Like, you get to start against Tampa. He wasn't on the team. He was on the practice squad. We had to like cut somebody to bring him up to get him playing time. It was wild. It was wild, but it was great.
How many of Pete's strategies do you use as
all
a
of
coach?
All of them. I am like literally like embarrassed how much Pete Carroll little coaching points I use as a high school coach. It's kind of funny. But he made it very simple. I think it was John Madden who said, if you have a bunch of rules, you know, like your players are going to break them all or whatever, just like have the rules that you need to have. And Pete was very simple. He had 3 rules and kind of branch off from there. But like I could still recite them today. He was a great communicator, and he brought a lot of people with him that understood how to like kind of, Pete didn't need to be there for me to know what Pete would say to a question, whether it was strength coaches or position coaches or whatever. He nailed that part of it.
Pete was the CEO.
Yeah, but he got dirty with you. I mean, he's playing catch. I mean, the day he told me that we were going to draft Charlie Whitehurst, he took me out and we played hoops. You know, and I'm in flip-flops, and I think maybe he was too, and we're playing one-on-one hoops. You know, the day that Charlie arrives, like me and Charlie are out there playing catch with Pete, and he's trying to throw it harder than both of us. And, you know, so he's like nobody that I've ever known. He's really dynamic.
Did you ever worry about hurting Pete in a game of catch?
Yes. In fact, he has a crooked finger, number one. But number two, I was so pissed off at him. I like really mad at him one time, and I threw the ball as hard as I could, and I broke his glasses. I kind of like hit him in the face. He wore gloves and hit him in the face. And like, he acted like he was hurt, and he acted like it was, you know, I broke his glasses. Well, his glasses didn't break. They're the kind that like connect and they're like magnetic. I've never worn glasses, so I didn't know, but I felt sort of bad. Not that bad, but a little bit bad. But yeah, he's great. You know what I mean? Like, he really was great. But at the same time, I will still say defensive guys see things a little differently than offensive guys, but he was helpful, though.
Okay, so what did you see when Marshawn Lynch arrived in the locker room? I have my first impressions.
Well, you know, I just remember the first team meeting. You know, Pete Carroll, again, like he came in and he was like, Marshawn. So he did this thing where he would introduce every new player. We had a lot of transactions. He'd introduce them and he'd play a joke on the player. And I don't want to give away his joke necessarily, but basically what I thought the great part of it is he said, Marshawn. And Marshawn had like a really tough career. I mean, he was a disaster, if we're being honest, with all kinds of problems. And he came in, he was like, Marshawn, I have wanted to coach you since you were at Oakland Tech. I wanted you at SC. And I am so glad to be here in the NFL because I can go get who I want to get. You are everything I'm looking for, you know, blah, blah. I don't want you to be anybody besides Marshawn. You just be you. Be the kid that I fell in love with at Oakland Tech. And I think for Marshawn, that was like life breathing to him, you know? And I don't know, I think it was a good start. And, you know, we played Chicago that week, and we weren't a good team. They were. We played pretty awesome. Marshawn rushed for like 60 yards, but they were a great 60 yards. And, you know, it wasn't really about him. He was learning. I think that one of the reasons that Marshawn was successful is that our starting running back at the time was Justin Forsett, who went to Cal with Marshawn, and they would think he was in his wedding. And the other guy was Sherm Smith, the running backs coach. Justin Forsett and Sherm Smith are two of the most humble, most amazing men that I've ever known. having Marshawn surrounded by those two guys with Pete Carroll's kind of like directive put him on a path to be successful. And there were other things too, but it worked. And obviously Marshawn's been super successful since. So I just think it was great. Mike Robinson as well. Like there was just like it was a great room. People talk about quarterback room a lot. Running back room matters as well.
When you watch Marshawn run, like, you know that some of that is innate, right? Like, you just can't teach some of that, some of the grit and some of just that contact balance that he had, you know? But how much did you watch him learn the game? Or was it all just natural skill?
Truthfully, he was probably in the front row asleep a little bit early on.
Okay, so it was all natural.
But I think what the coaches did a really good job of is they gave him a small menu to start. It's hard coming in. Like, you missed training camp, OTAs, all that stuff. He came in October. And so we basically, his like menu was inside zone, outside zone, and then he loved power. And that was kind of the thing. And, it was a lot of transition. Like, we had an O-line coach. We had the best zone scheme O-line coach that's ever lived in Alex Gibbs starting the season. He retires like Thursday before week 1. I was going to
say, he didn't even make it to the season.
So there was a lot of stuff like kind of like, we were not on the moving walkway, so to speak. Like, we were sort of walking the wrong way on the moving walkway, that were like the wind was not at our backs. But Marshawn, I think the coaches did a good job of like giving him like, what he could handle. He wasn't in the passing game a lot. Like, there were a lot of different things that way. We had Leon Washington, we had Justin, but he definitely was our first and second down. He was the hammer, not the nail kind of guy.
I remember sitting with him at his locker one day, and it's always nerve-wracking for me when guys like that come in during the middle of the year, because I'm counting on training camp to get to know you guys, just like you're counting on training camp to get to know everybody else. And Marshawn was quiet, and he had grills, right? So he had just this mouthful. His smile was awesome. And I was sitting there, and he started asking me what my first impressions of him were. And it was really interesting because you could tell how his time in Buffalo had influenced him, right? And you could tell, just to what you were saying, that to feel loved for who you are was a new thing for him.
Yeah.
And that conversation progressed, and, he asked if I would ever be afraid to do an interview with him. I'm like, no, I'm not afraid to do an interview. And we started talking about like college, and, he goes, I know people don't think I paid attention in school. I actually did pay attention in school. I can do all those things. And it was fascinating because what people see on the field is not always the way that he was in the locker room. Yeah. I found him to be awesome.
Oh, no doubt. I don't think anyone would say otherwise. Well, one thing that was interesting is Pete Carroll had hired Marshawn's uncle, Uncle Lee, to work here in the building, and I felt like I was usually like the first guy to work, one of them, if not the first player. But like the people who work in the building are here even before the players, And I remember the first time I came in, there was like a body laying in front of like Marshawn's locker. And I'm like, who is this? Well, anyway, long story short, Uncle Lee had to be at work early, and Marshawn was his ride. And so like Marshawn, for the rest of that season that I remember, he would beat me to work every day because he had to be there with Uncle Lee. And Uncle Lee had like, like players have shorter hours than like some of the people that work here. And Uncle Lee had late hours. And so like Marshawn was his ride home. And I think to this, like Uncle Lee became like family to all of us. Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think
he's still here.
He still works here.
I'm
it's so great.
Here. Yep.
He's so great. And but I just like whatever your image of Marshawn might have been, because he plays it up pretty good. No, he's a family first, team first kind of guy, and unique and different and whatever. But no, like he was all in. He was all in. And when it came to goal line, short yardage, first down, second down, that was his menu that year. And he rocked it. He did great.
So before we get to the Beastquake, we have to win the game that Charlie Whitehurst is quarterbacking. Mm-hmm. This is kind of an interesting feeling, I would imagine, for you, right? I know that you were battling injuries that year, but to see your backup, to know that you have to cheer for your backup and that this is winner take all, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember how you talked to Charlie before that game, or what you were feeling going?
Yeah, listen,
that game?
I love Charlie, and I was always rooting for him. I didn't necessarily want us to trade away the draft pick that could have gotten us Eric Decker, instead of him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, maybe that was true, but no, I was rooting for him. But yeah, I was mad that he started that game. Like, listen, I was battling injury, had all kinds of stuff. I had basically ripped a glute muscle scoring a touchdown in Tampa the week before. That injury was really an injury I had sustained against Carolina, or a team that color, maybe Carolina, Detroit. I think it was maybe Detroit, somebody at home the week before in pregame. And I was just hanging on and made it through that game. But anyway, I was angry. I had a broken wrist. I had all these different things going on. And Pete was like, we're going to sit you. We got some plays we want to run that we can only do if Charlie's in there, and we're going to sit you. And he said to me, we're going to let you come in the bottom of the ninth like Kirk Gibson and be the hero if Charlie can't get it done. And okay, I guess that made sense. I'll say in that moment, though, Pete had a special relationship with this kid, Jake Olson was his name, who lost his sight. He was a young kid, not a kid anymore. And he was with us the night that Pete told the quarterbacks, Charlie's going to start. And so I was angry because I had done everything I could to get back. I really felt like I could go. But I was there with Jake, this diehard USC fan that loved Pete. And there was a lot of USC people, a lot of people that weren't on our team around our team that year, which was also an adjustment from the Mike Holmgren years. But I think just being around that kid that night for me personally gave me a little bit more of a perspective and a joy that dude, if you even for a nanosecond feel like you can feel sorry for yourself right now, no, absolutely not. And I actually had sort of a picture that Jake gave me as a thank you for hanging out or whatever in my locker, really the rest of my NFL career. And it was just a picture of him.
So you turn into a great teammate. I shouldn't say turn into. You
all
are
of a
a
sudden,
great teammate. All of a sudden.
Thanks, Jen.
Whoops. Sorry about that. You were always a great teammate.
No, it was good. It was good.
And
Charlie played great, and we it was a cool atmosphere. It felt like kind of a, we all said wow, that felt like a playoff game until we had the Beastquake game. We're like, oh shoot, no. That's what a playoff game feels like, because that atmosphere was otherworldly. I think there was a chip on everybody's shoulder, fans especially, fans included. But no, that was a special night. It was cool.
Well, in that playoff game, though, the week of rest must have done some good, because you go 22 for 35, 272 yards, 4 touchdowns in the playoff game.
I play a little bit better with a chip on my shoulder, and I was angry. It wasn't a bitter kind of angry. It was more of there was a burning fire inside. Even that week in practice, Pete came to the quarterbacks and he was like, listen, he said to me, he's like, you're going to start, but I'm not letting the Saints know. This is back before social media was everywhere. And we were waiting until Sean Payton and the Saints got on their airplane to fly to Seattle. That's when he announced to our local media who the starter was. So to do that, we were sharing reps in practice for the media. We were doing all that kind of stuff, even for the players on the team. So I was like, you're robbing reps. I mean, I had guys like Gus Bradley coming up, and Dan Quinn coming up to me and being hey, I want to do it this way, just so you know, we're with you. But I was hot. And we were practicing with crowd noise every day for our defense, because it's hard on the defense to have our crowd noise. And so there was an intensity, and I think I might have even worn earplugs that week. Do not talk to me. I am just going to be all about the football. Don't come over with your smile, chewing all your gum, looking at me like that. No, you're not my friend. That line, that bridge has been I'm here to win games. And that, if you're here to do that too, then good, we can get along. So we go into that game. The very first pass that I throw on the game, it's this sprint out, the motion gets timed up wrong, the ball gets tipped, it gets intercepted. And I'm like, all right, that's it. He's been dying not to play me anyway. And I'm like, I'm going to just take it like a man. I'm going to just come over there, take the benching, and I walk right over to Pete. I kind of jog right in front of him. When Mike Holmgren was mad at me, I would come off the 30-yard line. Avoid, hide, not looking at you. You're not looking at me, can't see you. I went right past Pete and just fully expecting him to say, hey, my whole thing is it's all about the ball. You can't turn the ball over. You turn the ball over, you can't play. I go right by him, and he doesn't say that. He basically was like, with a smile on his face, chewing gum, he was like, hey, shake that off. Something like, shake that off. We need you today. And it was just like, whoa, like didn't expect it. Again, he was such a dynamic leader and motivator, just didn't expect it. And I think from that moment on, I was like, man, screw it. Like, cut it freaking loose. Be an artist, not a blacksmith. And like, basically, what Jed Fish had told me earlier in the year about like, you're playing defensive and that's why you're turning the ball over. Like, that's why you're leaving your putts short. He basically said to me, like, I see you drive like on the 405. You drive like you're from Boston. You drive like kind of aggressive, and it's sort of the safest way to drive. You don't drive like someone at driver's ed 10 and 2, you know, like, oh no, I'm afraid I'm going to get into an accident. You cut it loose. And so after that first pass, that first interception, I had this mindset. It was like, screw it, cut it loose, have fun, like no regrets. And I think that's a little bit how the rest of the game went. It's certainly not how it started.
Okay, but you get to the point where you're going to hand the ball to Marshawn. Now, we know the end result of that play, right? We know that it covered the entire length of the field. I believe that was a 2nd and 10 play call. What was that call supposed to result in? How many yards were you supposed to get on that play?
You said it was 2nd and 10. I had no idea. Like, I did not know that. I was playing the clock. So we were in 4-minute offense. You know, so like even going into the game, like we felt disrespected, right? Even the coaches, when they were coaching the game plan, by accident, they were disrespectful. Like Jeremy Bates, the offensive coordinator, comes in. He's like, listen, this team is so much better than us, so we're going to have to use smoke and mirrors. You know, John Carlson, we got a way we can like, you know, get your kind of sneaky guy. No one notices you sometimes. We can get you like, you know, like all these different things. Stokely, no one thinks you're fast. You know, a big Mike Williams, no one thinks you're fast. Like all these things. So when we got to 4-minute, which is what we call the situation when we're playing the clock, not the scoreboard, it was almost just like an afterthought. We had not really talked about it. Now, Marshawn on the sidelines was always asking for the same play. He wanted power. And we were trying to be a zone team. But a great thing that all zone teams do is they mix in a little bit of power. But when you don't do power a lot, you're usually not good at it, you know? And so basically, there's some coaching points that you give each person. And my coaching point for Marshawn, you know, I call the play. Let's just, whatever the formation is, 17 power on one-on-one ready break. I would always say to Marshawn, hit it downhill. I'm going to give you vision of the weak side A gap. So meaning like odds go to the left, evens go to the right. So 17, we're going to the left, but I'm going to give you vision of basically the 2-hole to the right in between the center and the guard. Well, we don't block the play properly. Literally almost no one does their job right. But there's a saying in offensive line rooms, and I think this is kind of true for a lot of professions. If we're all wrong together, we're right. And so, like, do something full speed, like, give it all you got. And we did. Now, I mix up my play fake after. Sometimes I'll bootleg. Sometimes I'll set to pass, whatever. I set to pass on that play and had like a pretty good view of the start of it, but it turned into something I could have never imagined.
What did it feel like as you heard? Because you couldn't have seen everything, right?
Well, because I set to pass, basically, so like when you boot away, like some coaches would say, like drive for 5, like 5 hard steps, not looking at the play, like, if you want a ticket, sit in the stands kind of thing. If you set to pass, like you hand it off, you kind of like, hunch over a little bit like your Boomer Esiason or Steve DeBerg or someone like that. And then you set up and kind of like look straight down the middle of the field. So yeah, so like I saw him, like go. And then literally in 4 minutes, like some of the coaching points, everyone has one, like for the running backs, 2 hands on the ball, don't run out of bounds. For wide receivers, O-line, like, hey, we can't have a penalty and stop the clock. For quarterback, your play fake is no longer really that important. Follow the ball. But like to think that I was going to be anywhere near the ball is sort of like, that's not going to happen. honestly, the best thing that happened on that play is probably that I don't get called for an illegal block in the back, because I was so excited just running down there, and like I had like a club on my left hand, and I put it out, and then the one dude kind of falls, and it was could have taken away the best run in NFL history. Luckily it didn't.
Okay, so where does that play call? Again, we know what the result was. Where does that play call fall on like your top 3 plays or plays that you ever get?
I mean, it's the greatest run in NFL history, no doubt. But there's nothing special about the play. Like every team in the NFL runs 17 power. I mean, I coach high school football. We probably call power left 17 times a game. And we call it 10 times a game, I bet. So like it's nothing special about the play, and we blocked it wrong. It was just like this collective guys blocking downfield, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, Chris Spencer, Tyler Columbus, wide receivers. Like it was special like that. And again, like we weren't necessarily trying to score. We're trying to run out the clock. There's less than 4 minutes to go. We're trying not to give the ball back. We have a 4-point lead. We don't want to give the ball back to Drew Brees and company. And I remember we score and like we're all huddled up like kind of again as players. And I like look up, and I never really ever looked up to like where my family was sitting, like ever. But I look up and I see like literally like where my kids are sitting, my parents, my mom and like my wife sitting, and I'm basically just like, I put my hands out like, can you freaking believe this? Like we did it. Like I know Pete was saying we're 0-0 and they're 0-0, but really, did you think this was going to happen? It was epic. It was absolutely, it was epic.
It was pretty awesome. And you know what would be helpful is if you had the Sony 1000 XM5 noise-canceling headphones for that game, because every game this season, you can feel every play, every hit, every moment with the official headphones of the Seattle Seahawks. With premium noise cancellation, you are in the zone. No distractions, just pure football. Whether you are in your living room or on the go, you will never miss a beat with Sony headphones. That turned out to be the last game that you played for the Seahawks.
Home game. We played one more game.
It is also,
but that was the last home game.
It also feels to me like after the way 2004 ended or 2003, like when you think about the disappointing finishes that you have had, that you have previously shared, that maybe that was some extra gratification or validation.
It was incredible. And I would just say like the end of the game's over. My kids had never once ever been on the field after like when like I was still on the field. Like we kind of had a family rule, like after the game's over, everybody's gone home or like whatever. Like if we won, sure, we'll come out to the field and we'll play catch or whatever before we go hit Krispy Kreme for a donut or somewhere like that. Something completely unhealthy. So we had kind of had that family rule, but never had my kids ever been on the field. But my roommate, one of my teammates, his wife, must have been like, I don't know, listening to talk radio or something. She was like, this might be his last game as a Seahawk or last game here at what was then Quest Field. And so she finds a police officer, takes my kids down to the field and gets them on the field. And so there was a special moment, like I'm there and post-game interviews, whatever, like all the stuff. And then we're walking off and I don't want to lose my kids, and I got Henry on my shoulders. I give the football to my daughter. My other daughter, Annabelle, like she's holding on to her. And we walk off and, I got these amazing Rod Marr, Corky Truin photos of us walking off the field for what was, I didn't know at the time, was my last game here as the Seahawks quarterback. So it's a memory that, it's like a movie for me. It was great.
What happened to the football?
Yeah, so I didn't know this at the time. But like we mentioned, Marshawn scores. He does this celebration that he got fined for. Me and Ben Obamano pick up the ball, and we take it over to the equipment managers, and we're like, hey, that was the greatest run in NFL history. Save this ball for Marshawn, which they do. No big deal. Well, whatever. John Carlson recovers an onside kick, and we go back into the game, and we're just going to take a knee. Well, Marshawn, being classic Marshawn, he takes that football, gives it to the official, and says, hey, I want to close out the game with this football. Well, we're not running any more plays. We're just taking a knee. So we take a knee, whatever. Marshawn bolts to the locker room. That was back when he didn't want to talk to anybody. And so he gets out of there. Next thing I know, I got the ball. Everyone's rushing the field. I'm doing an interview with like Alex Flanagan or someone. My kids are there. I'm like, I give the ball to my daughter, Mallory. Anyway, that's the ball. It's in all the pictures. But years later, NFL Films, they trying to track down this ball. And they come to me and they were like, oh, we're trying to track down the ball. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I saved it and gave it to the equipment managers for Marshawn. And they were like, no. And they tell me how Marshawn put the ball back in the game. And I was like, why would he do that? I'm like, if that's true, then that ball is in my daughter's room. And so they were like, oh my gosh, you got to give the ball back to him. I'm like, well, yeah, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like that ball's been played with. It's been in my pool. My dog's probably had it in his mouth. Like, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like the movie Sandlot at this point, you know? So, I mean, maybe that makes it a little more Marshawn anyway, but we'll see.
Did he get the ball back?
You know what? I need to, because we moved around a lot. Like, we have a lot of stuff in storage. So by the time I heard that story from NFL Films, I was at the end of my career, about 40 years old, and all my stuff's like in boxes and it's in storage. Sorry, it's in storage. So like it's there somewhere, but we need like an investigative, like authenticator to be like, oh yeah, here's the referee's number or the day, you know, whatever, however you do that. But yeah, if that's what happened, then yeah, I mean, there you go.
It's like an unsolved mystery that we might be able to solve in the 50th season of the Seahawks.
Maybe the 100th season when I'm gone.
Maybe he's not going to give up that football.
No, I mean, you can have it. It's I would like to donate it to like wherever, the Hall of Fame or whoever. So.
Okay, we'll see if we can make that happen. Okay. But for now, you know the story behind the Beastquake Run. Thank you to Matt Hasselbeck. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Seahawks Stories 50th Season Edition.